Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into some seriously wild stuff. FutureArmy tech battle concepts.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So, what exactly is the US Army working on right now? It's a question we've all probably asked ourselves at some point, right? We always hear these crazy rumors, or maybe we read some dry, boring press release about a defense contract, but we almost never get to actually see the hardware in motion. Well, today, consider me your virtual tour guide because we recently got a rare peek behind the curtain. We're going to unpack some highly secretive, newly public military footage to see exactly what kinds of cutting-edge, totally futuristic weapons are making their way from the drawing board out into the real world.
So where is all of this happening? It all goes down at an event called Project Convergence. Think of this as the ultimate military testing ground. It's this massive, multi-week event where the Army brings its absolute most advanced arsenal out into the harsh desert environment to see how it actually performs. I mean, they want to know if these concepts hold up in the dirt, the mud, and the unpredictable sky. They are literally out there pushing these systems to their absolute breaking point. Now, while the military was super careful not to give away any specific top speeds or radar capabilities in this footage, just looking at what they chose to show us tells a massive story about their immediate priorities. Which brings us right to Concept 1, Autonomous Ground Combat. This was the first major piece of tech to roll out of the testing grounds, and wow, it is something else. Picture a rugged, unmanned ground vehicle heading straight into the line of fire. It's designed from the ground up to completely replace human soldiers in the absolute most dangerous frontline scenarios. I mean, taking the human element out of the direct line of fire, that's a total paradigm shift. It completely flips the risk calculation of an assault. And as you're about to hear, this thing packs a seriously heavy punch.
Just look at how visually stacked this vehicle's lethal capabilities are. First off, it sits on a fully autonomous base. That means it navigates and drives itself over complex terrain, no human steering wheel required. Then, mounted right on top of that chassis, you have javelin launchers. Those are highly sophisticated anti-tank missiles built to totally obliterate heavy armor from a distance. Pair that with a heavy machine gun for rapidly engaging closer targets, and it's a beast. But honestly, my absolute favorite detail from the footage is that it's also equipped with a built-in smoke machine. You kind of have to wonder, right? Is that for deploying tactical cover? Or did they just want to give this menacing robot a dramatic WWE-style entrance onto the battlefield? Either way, it's incredibly intimidating.
Okay, let's pivot from frontline offense over to vital logistical support. We're moving to Concept 2, which I like to call the flying fuel hose. Listen, tanks, troop transports, and even those cool autonomous rovers we just talked about, they are essentially just heavily armored paperweights if they run out of gas. Logistics actually win conflicts, and that is exactly where this highly unusual piece of tech comes in. It is quite literally a flying fuel hose designed to keep the momentum of an advance going strong. The mechanics here are just fascinating. To really grasp why this is such a game changer, think about how incredibly dangerous traditional refueling is in a combat zone. Normally, you've got human crews driving these massive, highly explosive fuel trucks incredibly slowly through muddy, mine-laden areas, all while under the threat of artillery fire. It is literally one of the most vulnerable positions you can be in. Well, this new process changes the whole shebang. First, a sleek support drone takes flight, navigating way up high over hostile territory. Then, it drops its altitude and deploys a fuel hose mid-air, basically acting like a hovering gas station. Finally, it routes that fuel directly down to units on the ground. It's a vital lifeline that keeps the front line moving without ever risking a human crew. But here is where things get super interesting, and you can really see the strategic mind games at play. How far can this thing actually fly? Well, the source explicitly notes that this drone flies the fuel hose to an, quote, unknown distance. Now that phrasing is absolutely not an accident, and it's for sure not a typo. The military is deliberately keeping its true strategic range a closely guarded secret. By hiding the maximum distance, adversaries are left totally guessing. They literally have no idea how far American armored units can safely push past their supply lines before running out of gas. All right, so we've seen autonomous ground combat. We've seen rapid aerial logistics. Now we're reaching the climax of our virtual showcase with Concept 3, Death from Above. Without a doubt, this is the most intimidating piece of aerial tech revealed in the entire Project Convergence footage. We're looking at the evolution of something truly terrifying that's recently proven its devastating effectiveness in modern combat. It went from a makeshift battlefield innovation straight into formalized military doctrine almost overnight. To really understand this next vehicle, you have to know about its raw, real-world origins. The source references a drone known as the Baba Yaga.
If you haven't heard that name, it's a type of heavy bomber drone utilized heavily in the brutal trench warfare over in Ukraine. It earned its frightening folklore-inspired name by hovering silently over enemy positions in the dead of night, using thermal cameras to precisely drop heavy anti-tank grenades and mortar shells right out of the sky. It's a brilliant, if terrifying, example of how quickly military engineers watch global conflicts in real time and adapt to what actually works out there in the mud.
And what this footage reveals is that the US isn't just sitting back taking notes, they are actively building their own American adaptation of this Ukrainian inspiration. The physical shift here is just stark. In Ukraine, these often started as consumer-grade or agricultural quadcopters that were modified with zip ties and 3D printed release mechanisms. But the American version? It is a formalized, rugged, military-grade heavy lifter. We're seeing a drone designed specifically from scratch to replicate and massively enhance those same grenade-dropping capabilities. It's a raw wartime innovation perfectly translated into a high-tech piece of the US arsenal.
When we take a step back and look at these three distinct vehicles, the Javelin ground unit, the flying fuel hose, and that heavy bomber drone, we really need to keep one exact quote from our source material in mind. All of this footage is just, quote, a tiny glimpse into how the US Army is transforming itself. That's the real takeaway here. These aren't just isolated science experiments or fun little R&D side projects. They are part of a massive, highly coordinated shift. The entire military doctrine is evolving all at once. So why does all this matter to you? Well, it all boils down to preparation for the future of warfare. The one big, overarching thesis driving absolutely all of this rapid innovation is the goal of minimizing human presence on the battlefield through robotics. Whether they're firing anti-tank weapons from a rover, delivering highly flammable fuel through the air, or dropping explosives in the dead of night, the ultimate goal is incredibly clear. Keep human soldiers out of harm's way, while dramatically increasing operational range, speed, and lethality.
I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on before we wrap up today. We just walked through some incredibly advanced, literally sci-fi level robotics that are actively being tested in the desert right now. But remember, this is just the footage they actively chose to declassify and show the public. If this is what they are openly willing to let us see at Project Convergence, what incredible, terrifying technologies remain completely classified and hidden behind closed doors? Let your imagination run wild with that for a second. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.